Welcome to Untold, the business podcast bringing you the best kept secrets of Utah. Untold brings you up close and personal stories from amazing businesses and founders in Utah. With me today is Connor Atkin, co-founder of Tagg and Go Express Car Washes. Connor, I'd love for you to tell us a little bit about your company, but first I'd like to start with something you posted a few weeks ago. You posted a screenshot of your bank account, basically your net worth of $462, right when you were founding the business and getting ready to get married. So tell us about that starting point and where you've come from there.
Yeah, so I am more active on LinkedIn now, thanks to my marketing team. He's saying that's a great platform to use. So I have been sharing a little bit more of our entrepreneurial journey. I think a lot of times people put limits on themselves because they don't have money, they don't come from a rich family, whatever. So some of the stuff I like to post about is kind of breaking down those thoughts in people's heads of saying, look, we've started. We're almost to 30 locations. By the time this comes out, we'll be at 30 locations. And it literally started with one location in a little town in Hurricane, Utah, when we were worth $462, right? So we're still learning and growing now, but yeah, I just want to break that belief down that if you have enough drive and passion, you can make it happen however it happens.
Wow, inspiring. But that had to be pretty frightening. Like, tell me about your mindset. Like, how did that feel when you're at that crossroads in your life? What?
I think we were so young and dumb we didn't know any better. But looking back, I'm like, man, I was kind of dumb. My father-in-law jokes. We got married in November and bought our first car wash. Um, I bought it 6 months or 8 months before that. So we kind of had a little car wash going. And then our second one actually is when we went full time, paid ourselves $2,100 a month. And my father-in-law jokes, yeah, I don't know who my daughter was marrying at that point. You quit your job right after you get married. But yeah, it definitely, I'm a big advocate to start business anytime. But really, when you're younger and you don't know any better, right? The world hasn't
Mhm.
beat you up quite as much. We were just ready to conquer the world.
That's true. Yeah, you've got less to lose, right? Like, why not go for it?
For
Interesting.
sure. Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm curious. Like you mentioned, your father-in-law was maybe, maybe a doubter. Did you have any other doubters? Did you have anybody that you felt like you were kind of proved wrong, or you had something to prove?
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, you hear all the time of people saying partnerships always sink, right? They're like the ships
Mhm.
that always sink. So I remember my own mother just not knowing anymore, just saying, you're getting into a partnership with somebody, be careful. Partnerships usually don't go well. So there's a lot of doubters from the onset of partnerships. Of course, banks, there was a lot of doubters. We tried to go to multiple banks
Mhm.
to get financing, and they said there's no way this is going to make money or that we can finance this. So we had to get creative with that. So yeah, there's been doubters, I guess I would say, all along the way. And I would say, what is it now, 12 and a half years later? There still are doubters. They're just maybe different doubts, but we're still pushing the banks to the limits. We're still growing fast enough that it's not easy. I mean, nothing in this world's easy, and especially when you're trying to grow as fast as we are.
Right on, right on. So, you said you had to, maybe because the banks were doubting you, you had to get creative. What did that mean? That to mean take on personal risk, seller financing? How'd you make it work?
Yeah, all the above. So our first one specifically, and this is, I could almost write a whole book just on this, but the first one was we tried to get a bank to finance this, just a traditional 80% loan, and they said, there's no way we can do that. We need um, 35%. It was 35% down. We didn't have 35% at the time. So then we had to ask around and say, how do we come up with 35%? And somebody said, hey, what about a seller finance? We
Hmm.
were young and dumb, didn't even know what that was. So then he said he would do some of it. So then the last 10%, Quinn, my partner, and I, we had some savings, but most of it was credit card debt, balance transfers. You can pay, like a 3% upfront, and then you don't have a payment for 12 months or 18 months. Or
Yeah.
we were both in college, so we had some student debt that we could repurpose and use for that. So yeah, we were effectively 100% financed. Now, granted, at this point, it was almost a $300,000 loan, which may or may not sound like a lot to those who are listening, but at the time, that was huge for us. A year later, we were trying to get a $900,000 loan for a second car wash, and we again effectively 100% financed that one as well. So we've had to get very creative, and the numbers just keep getting bigger. The more we grow, the bigger the numbers go. But yeah, there's a trade-off. You can get an equity partner, but you lose maybe some control or some ownership. Or
Mm-hmm.
we've tried to be more aggressive and figured a way out to not give up equity.
Okay.
Um, and we've had to give up equity through the years in certain aspects, but we always try to have a way to maybe buy it back down the road when things get better. If we could buy it back from our equity partner down the road.
Okay. Okay. So, it sounds like, you described really well, like two times that you basically went all in, right?
That's two of many. I can think
Mhm.
back. We've had many times, but yes, that was two of a few times.
What's the thought process? Like, has it gotten easier? And why has it gotten easier if the answer is yes?
Um, in what way are you asking easier? Some things have gotten easier. I would say other things it's just different now. So if you are you saying financing? Is that what you're asking?
No, I mean
What's
the all in decision.
the all in?
Hmm.
Um, yeah, I would say maybe a little bit easier because we've done it enough times now where now we say, okay, what is the worst case scenario? Worst case scenario to us is probably selling our business, right? We don't want to do that, but now we look at it
Okay.
and say, okay, if that's the worst case, now let's work backwards and say, okay, if that doesn't happen, now what? And now what? And now what? So we just try to set up when we go all in, when we get hard money loans, when we do something, kind of have an out date to say, okay, if all went to crap, can we can we still sell our business? So we do have maybe the luxury that our business currently is pretty sought after. It's a membership based business. It's a real estate backed business. So we have that back. I mean, I don't know what the right word is, like a back end or back door if things really
Um,
went bad.
you
But we
got
don't want that.
assets, you got tangible
Exactly.
assets. Yeah.
Yeah. But we don't want. I
Hmm.
mean, we want to grow this to be the largest regional player in the Mountain West. We want to. I mean, we could see ourselves 75, 100 plus within Idaho, Utah. That footprint just by acquiring and building locations. So that that would be a worst case scenario because we're still having so much fun doing this. We don't want to do that, but yes, we've had times even now where we're just going all in and going for it.
Okay. So even though, you're not young and dumb, like you said, you've got stuff to lose, you've kind of figured out how to analyze and make this decision over and over.
Yeah, so I mean, we started out and talking about just this
Okay.
little one in Hurricane, Utah. So now Tag and Go is a regional membership-based tunnel car wash. We've got currently, as we're talking, we have 22 open. We've got one under construction, and we're buying seven in Idaho the end of this month, April, or into May, somewhere in there. So we're going to be at 30 locations here shortly, which again started out with one little $300,000 self-serve car wash in Hurricane, Utah. So the numbers at this point just are getting bigger, right? The loans, it costs a lot more to build them now than 12,
Yeah.
15 years ago. So yeah, there's just the business has evolved. We've got almost 500 employees, so there's just a lot more irons in the fire now.
Tell me about, how do you run that many locations? Like describe the organization or how you and your partner approach it.
Yeah, we've gotten busy. So the first 5 years, him and I spent every waking moment of almost every every day together, running every part of it together. So operations, new construction, we were building about one a year at that point, so it wasn't near what it is today. We were kind of doing the management of everything. We started out doing the maintenance. So I would say that was great for us that we learned the business like from the very bottom. So we actually opened and closed the car washes and had the employees work in the middle of the day. So as we've evolved, I moved up closer to the Salt Lake area. My partner, where we founded the business, still lives in St. George. And so we've kind of had to evolve. And now he runs the operations And our joke is I run everything before a car wash and then after the operations of the car wash. So I run everything accounting, everything after, but then everything before we open, it's financing, it's site selection, it's equipment procurement. So anything kind of pre and post. And so I tell Quinn, I live in the past and I live in the future, and you get to live in the here and now. So it's kind of a trade-off.
Okay.
I I have things that I can't tell people until they're done, and he just can, fire off today. Whatever we're trying to solve today, he can solve. So that's how we've kind of made the business how to manage it from him and my level. Now we've got a leadership team now. We've got regional managers. We have site managers. We have assistant site managers. We have a maintenance department that handles 3 to 5 locations for each technician. So yeah, it's a full run company now. It's no longer just Quinn and I trying to open and close it by ourselves.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, that's a big scaling journey. Like, tell me about, lessons or early mistakes that you've made that became those, learning moments.
Those learning moments, yeah, we really had no desire to grow just until 2021. So we didn't really, they say you got to have a good foundation. We started growing up into northern Utah without a good foundation. So that 2022, 2023 years were really hard learning years from an operational standpoint, because we're almost building the house as it was already, we're pouring the foundation as the house was already going vertical.
Mm.
So, yeah, getting the right team, of course, that's kind of cliche, but having the right team, we've had to go through a few different directors or area managers or whatever to get the right people in the right seat, as they call it, on the bus.
Hmm.
Also, I mean, from the start, I would say we should have just been saying, even if we don't grow up into northern Utah or Idaho, we should build this thing out if we're ready. And we kind of ran it as a mom and pop, and we weren't ready for the growth operationally. So that was a big one. We did end up hiring a business coach that kind of gave us a structure. It's called the EOS system, the Entrepreneurial
Yeah.
Operating System. So we don't have him as a coach anymore, but it was really timely in our business to kind of bring some structure and, yeah, to our business. So we still run a lot of our stuff kind of EOS backed for the most part.
And what challenges did that decision help you to solve?
I mean, communication, being on the same page. So they're big on having
Uh,
weekly meetings,
yeah.
especially with your leadership team. We didn't even have a leadership team before we had this business coach. It was just Quinn and I. We formed a leadership team. That team is completely changed over now that we've grown. We needed to have people that could grow with us. Um, and then we have quarterly meetings. We have yearly goals. So it's just bringing structure to our business. That again, like any founder-led business that's just kind of small mom and pop, it's kind of on them. Now,
Yeah.
our hope is, right? Our hope is we could leave for a month and the business doesn't get any worse off if they're gone. Hopefully, it's better if we have the right people. It's better without us there. So yeah, still not quite there yet because we're growing so fast from the acquisition front and everything. But that's our goal. We do have a much better team now, ready for the future growth.
Yeah. Interesting. The founder journey is always an interesting one. Like how would people describe your leadership now versus 10 years ago when you were doing it all?
Yeah, if I go back to partnership, Quinn and I are we kind of look similar. We're not brothers, but we look similar, but we have two very different styles. And so we joke about it. He has the ability or the personality to maybe be more direct, and I'm probably more soft or passive. And I would say anybody that worked for us 10 years ago to the now, we've probably both came down. I've come up and maybe a little bit more assertive, and he's come down and maybe a little bit more cannot blow up, with one thing. He can take it in and like, okay, I realize this is just part of the process. So I would say as a whole, Quinn and I together are great, but we're still just, kind of coming together.
Okay.
So yeah, for me personally though, definitely more assertive, more, and that's just part of the nature of being a business owner. You can't just sit on your butt and not do anything. You have to sometimes have hard conversations. You got to request, something from a vendor or an employee. So yeah,
Hmm.
I'm a huge business advocate of just the things you learn in business. especially a fast growing business, just you can learn more in a year than most people learn in 20 years just because there's so much going on
Yeah.
in a scaling business.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm glad you brought in your partner into this conversation because I'm really curious. You mentioned that partnerships are are risky. Like sometimes they do
Yeah.
go bad. Um, what what would you say is some of the secrets of your successful partnership?
Yeah, I think with us as operating partners, we both started out at the beginning, right? If we were to now
Okay.
bring in a third operating partner that didn't start at the beginning, you just don't have that history together. So I understand how that can be hard. I do understand though partners, there are needs sometimes for partners that maybe aren't operating partners, right? Like an equity partner or a growth partner, a development partner. So um, we've had both good and bad of those as well. And I would say what we've learned through our journey is a lot of it is we probably didn't put enough time and energy or didn't understand the legal side of it. That we just assumed that everything was going to work out. But if we would go back, we would have just spent more time at the beginning getting our legal documents in a row. A lot of that stuff, it's usually the unwinding of it or the management control where you have issues with it with the outside partner. So if you can try to
Mm,
solve those issues before you even start, then you just have the operating agreement to kind of rely back on. Um, but back to an operating partner, I think that's key to our success. Is we founded it together, we started together, we worked every day together for almost 7 years, so that we kind of have that good rapport together. We know what the other one's more than likely going to think or do.
mm. Did you guys have an agreement in place from the beginning? Like
So
you mentioned legal. Huh.
Quinn and I, not really. We actually, that's a funny joke. We started February of 2013. We just did like our articles of incorporation. The joke is we went to McDonald's. It's not a joke. The fact of it is we went to McDonald's. We used their free internet and just did it kind of by ourselves. We set the articles up at McDonald's for the free internet. The franchisee in St. George now says, "Hey, I should have a part ownership. You use my internet to start your business." But yeah, we set that up, and that was really it. And then we got started with our business, and then later in 2013, we actually ended up taking out a small little $7,000 loan to get our actual operating agreement set up. So we didn't actually have an operating agreement until after we had started. Um, but we did have like our business name and EIN before we started. But yeah, just being young and dumb, we didn't set that up. Um, with our
Mm,
history, we weren't as concerned about it. But now that we've had a few different equity partners through the years, and then some have come and some have gone, looking at that history, it's yeah, we should have spent more time at the beginning. Don't go into business till the operating agreement's done, I guess, is with anybody outside party. Quinn and I did together, which was fine and it worked out, but anybody outside of maybe you and like as founders, it would have been better for us to just take our time and yeah, get the operating agreement done before we started.
okay. Okay. Um, so it sounds like you were growing, and then you kind of hit a period where it was almost like you were consolidating, or moving into northern Utah, things slowed down, and now you're like hitting a different trajectory. Is
Yeah.
that has that been what was kind of that turning point? What caused you to hit the accelerator?
Yeah, I think everybody, in my opinion, and at least as our history, you probably have different, and the EOS talks about it, you have different plateaus where you kind of plateau and then you either can stay there or you can grow. So we've had multiple, as mentioned at the first, we started out with the self-serve car wash. We bought a second and then we built two tunnels and kind of just plateaued. We're like, okay, we have two self-serves, we have two tunnels, we'll be good. We kind of plateaued for about a year, and then um, one day we were sitting there and we kind of started talking again, and then within that next calendar year we had bought two more self-serve car washes and started construction or opened two more tunnels. So we kind of
Mm,
got going to say, okay, we effectively doubled in size in a year from 2018 to 2019. And then from there, just kind of slowly, okay, let's keep building out Southern Utah. 2020 we had one, 2021 we had two, and we now had seven 7 tunnels and 4 self-serve car washes, and we kind of plateaued there. And then this is where the next phase of growth. My wife and I were talking, and so this time it wasn't Quinn and I, it was my wife and I, and we both had the impression we needed to move to northern Utah. And we didn't want to. We both were like, we don't want to, but we both felt the need. For whatever reason, we needed to. Some of those answers, we feel like now we know why we needed to, um, but yeah, we decided that we needed to move. Quinn and I spoke about it, and we actually didn't know what we were going to do. We actually hired an investment banker and went to market because we're like, well, we can go to market and maybe sell, get some cash and move on, or maybe we can partner with somebody and maybe they can just help us in southern Utah, maybe grow a few more. We went to market, got offers that we kind of put our number out, and so at this point we're kind of at this plateau saying what's our next step.
Yeah.
And so we had some private hard money lenders lending us money on our current 4 self-serves and 7 tunnels at this point. And we went to that gentleman and said, hey, we have some offers on the table. We're thinking about taking them, but we actually don't know if we want to get out of the car wash business. Would you convert some of your debt to equity and maybe help us grow a few up in northern Utah? And he said, yeah, I would actually love that. I would rather not get my money back. So if you sell out, then I'm going to get my money back. So in 2021, he converted his debt to equity, and we moved up into northern Utah, thinking we'd maybe build 5 to 10. And in the last 3 years, we've done 15, and we've got 8 in the hopper. So a lot quicker growth than we anticipated. But yeah, we hit that plateau in 2021, and then it's kind of been pedal to the metal ever since then. I don't feel like I ever have time to really even relax or sleep. So yeah.
Okay. Wow,
yeah,
that's cool. Oh.
It's been a journey.
And so what is your ambition? So what do you see as the end game? You mentioned earlier want to be the largest in the region. Is that kind of the stated goal, or where do you see yourself in 5 years, 10 years?
Yeah, when we talk internally to our team, we call that 2021 our year of discovery, right? So we went to market. Quinn and I were both young 30s, high 20s. Could have had quite a good little nest egg. But we finally had our year of discovery to say, what is our why? We finally discovered what our why is. We didn't get into the car wash business thinking we wanted to flip it or to make money. We got into it saying we want to be community focused. We want to have something that we can go to work every day and have purpose. So that's evolved into this whole regional player of, we feel like the best way to do that and the best way to give value to our customers and employees is to be a strong regional brand that no matter if you're in Ogden or Idaho Falls or St. George, your membership can work at any of those places. Seems like a corridor that a lot of people drive. Most people don't drive from, Salt Lake City all the way over to Chicago, Illinois. They'll probably jump on a plane, right? But this kind of corridor of I-15, a lot of us drive it, whether it's for kids going to college or, professional sports or spring break in southern Utah, right? We all kind of travel this corridor. So yeah, our goal is back to what I said earlier, is we don't want to sell out. We want to have a strong regional brand. We always say there's kind of 3 companies that we'd love to mix together and make a baby with. It's the Larry H. Miller Group, which, in the Mountain West we're very familiar with. Yep. They're very community focused, a lot with that. Chick-fil-A is great for operations, customer service. People just know them so well in that arena. And then there's a car wash actually out in Indiana called Crew Car Wash that, from an operational excellence of car washes, anybody who washes there and they wash anybody else anywhere else basically says these guys are the gold standard. So we want to kind of be the gold standard of car washes mixed with some community involvement and customer experience type stuff.
Okay. So, when you guys are communicating internally, about that aspiration, what are the values behind that? So what do you guys ask of yourselves and of your employees to help you get there?
Yeah, we have what's called a proven process. We have what's called just our core values, and then we have the AOC. So there's kind of 3 things that we kind of have married together that's on all the break rooms and the equipment room doors so people know what's going on. And yeah, It's just a high level um, of accountability and ownership and consistency. That's our AOC, what that stands for: accountability, ownership, and consistency. That if we have those three things in our business, along with this kind of flywheel of success, what we call the proven process, we're the only ones that can beat ourselves up with that point. If people leave us for another competitor, it's because we didn't do one of these things right in this flywheel, that
Mm,
we didn't, have great working amenities. If our vacuums don't suck very hard, people are going to go somewhere else. But if we're on top of our vacuums, a lot of people, they love a car wash, but really what they're after is the vacuums to get all those crumbs and stuff out of their car. Um, so yeah, that internally we talk about that significantly. We
okay.
just invested this calendar year, we've put in over $500,000 into a leadership training program. It's called Stewart Leadership that we're implementing. We've kind of rolled it out and it's been great. I mean, the feedback we've got from employees and everybody is just, yeah, right. A lot of people say they want to have an employee focused company, but we feel like we got to put our money where our mouth is. So
Mm,
we don't know enough. So we hired a professional to help us build out our stuff, and great success so far. If we talk again in
good.
a year, I'll let you know how it goes. But so far, so good.
Okay. And so what would you hope that your employees feel about their experience of working for Tag and Go?
Um, we occasionally get texts from old employees, which kind of make it all worth it. You only hear maybe from one out of every 50, but we had one just text us a few months ago that she's now a nurse at a hospital, and she says everybody in the hospital tells her how such a hard worker is and the things that she does with the customers. And she texted Quinn and I personally and said, I have all this to owe for the things that I learned at Tag and Go and with you guys, of just things that you can learn there, right? With customer service, we're interacting with so many customers every day, and
Yeah.
then holding them to a high standard of not just letting them, screw off. They have to be accountable to it. So for us, I kind of joke, Utah's growing. There's not as many farms and ranches as there used to be 50 years ago, where people used to go and buck hay. Like now I want people to come to the car wash, and that's where they learn life skills and hard work. So that's kind of what we hope. We understand most people won't make a career out of car washing forever, but when
Hmm.
they're here, we hope that they learn and take things with them to their next profession or career that helps them in that aspect of their life.
Oh, good. Good. Um, I'm curious, when you look forward, what are the current limits of the model that you have today? Like, do you feel like you can just scale up the way you are to 75 to 100, or like where do you
So
think you might need to look at change?
Well, I live in this world. I would say the customer, or sorry, the employee side, I feel like we're as good as we've ever been. This leadership program, the people that we have leading these people, of course, there's always room for improvement. But I'm not worried if we were to buy seven in Idaho like we're planning on. We have people up there. We've got staff that were more prepared for that. I would say the limits, and maybe it's because I live in this world, is the financial side of it. We've been growing at
Hmm.
about five a year for the last 3 years, so they're still ramping. They're not, I mean, in the financial world, you have ramping stores and you have mature stores, and we have so many stores that are still ramping to convince financial institutions or banks to, take the risk. That's our limitation. If we were to slow down for 3 to 5 years, let everything catch up, then we'd be in a much better position. But we feel like there are opportunities in our market that if we don't take them and somebody else does, you may never have a shot again. There's a quote that I love that I share within the company, um, and it says, sometimes we miss the opportunity of a lifetime because we miss the lifetime of that opportunity. So
Hmm.
we really love that yeah, that we feel like these Idaho ones are the opportunity of a lifetime to kind of be the strong regional player in eastern Idaho. But if we don't take it, or didn't have the ability to take it when it's open, somebody else comes along and buys these acquisitions, and
Yeah.
yeah, more than likely, if it's a consolidator or a big competitor of ours, we're never going to have a shot to get it back. At least not in our next 20 years of car washing, right? So yeah, that's a big mantra we live by: is, yeah, don't miss the opportunity of a lifetime. Be
Okay.
ready for it.
Yeah, and how do you identify opportunities in the market?
Yeah, somebody just asked me this a few weeks ago, and I said, I don't know if I was in a different industry, I wouldn't be near as, I just wouldn't know what I didn't know. If I were to start another business today, I wouldn't know what it is. But being 12 years in the car washing, we've now acquired 5 locations. We've kind of seen how those change when we bring them into our portfolio of, the membership model. We got up to 5 self-serve car washes that we renovated and fixed up. So when we look at it, because we've now been 12 years, we can kind of look and see what they're doing with their employees. We can look at their equipment. We can look at their numbers of cars that they're washing a day. We can look at traffic counts. We can say they should be doing more than they are, but they're not. Why? Can we find the reason why? So these Idaho ones specifically, we feel like we're buying them at a great price that we can turn around and now be the market leader up in Eastern Idaho. Now, other ones we've looked at or are currently looking at, they may not be a home run deal, but I call it, okay, maybe this is a single. Maybe it's not a home run, but it's a single or a double. Does this still fit within our Utah market to bring
Mm-hmm.
both employee and customer convenience? And we can say we don't have to hit a home run every time, but we're looking at another one that's a single. But we're saying this fits so well with what we've already built out. Maybe as a company, it's still a double or a triple because it just helps our company as a whole. So yeah,
Right.
that's kind of the way we look at it. We use a lot of AI software now, and we use stuff to try to make it data wise, make it all work. But still, there's kind of that gut feeling and knowing the industry is kind of really what we lean on to say, okay, we
Okay.
can buy it at X price and we can turn it around in 2 to 3 years
Mm-hmm.
or whatever.
There's some intangibles that you kind of factor
Yeah,
into the
for sure.
numbers. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Um, yeah. So, you talked about that ambition, right? About being that regional player. And what would it mean to you, Connor, if you get there, right? What does it mean to achieve those ambitions?
Yeah, that's a great question. Um, not to derail, but back to kind of our starting out of our company. So a little about Quinn and I.
Mm-hmm.
Quinn's dad was actually murdered when he was 14, and my dad passed away when I was 8. So when we
Wow.
became business partners, we had that, of course, in common, right? Both of our moms were widows because of
Mm-hmm.
kind of a freak accident on both of them. So we've always tried to keep that in mind, of what's really most important is family, right? Business is, so to your point, back to your question, is it going to mean something? Yes. As a human being, we want to say we got to 75 or 100 just to, hit that mark, but we want to keep it in perspective to say, well, my life doesn't revolve around that. If it could be taken tomorrow, right? The business could, the family could. We both had those moments already happen in our lives. We have to rebalance or recenter sometimes because we get so busy in work that it's hard to have balance, right? But
Yeah.
but at the core of Quinn and I, who we are because of our experience, um, it would mean a lot. I mean, I don't want to discount. It would mean a lot. I feel like for our team and customers, it'd be a huge win. And then now we're kind of the leader that we can kind of dictate any competitive threats. If we have kind of the upper hand with
Yeah.
them by location count and quality, then we can kind of control our own destiny. We found in markets where we're one of the small guys, even though if we have a better service, it still comes down to convenience. It's kind of like gas stations, right? If your
Yeah.
gas station's 10 miles away, even though it's got the best gas, it's just too far out of the way. You're going to have the one that's most convenient to you. So
Mm-hmm.
um,
Mm-hmm.
we feel like we got to keep growing to stay relevant in this Mountain West. So we're growing faster than maybe the banks like us to, but we feel like we got to keep pushing just because that's ultimately what's going to win out, in our opinion, is having the most convenient locations with a high quality product or service that's going to win out in the end.
Okay. No, excellent. Um, I guess, as you guys think about what you're building, how would you and Quinn want to be remembered when you're that top, that, you're kind of exiting, right? Or what's that legacy, that you guys see down the road?
Yeah, Quinn and I would say we're not there yet, but we're still, I mean, now that we've gone from one location to almost 30, um, we still want to be very well known as owner operators, that we're in the business. We don't see ourselves sitting in some high tower just looking at spreadsheets and never being on the sites. I know this morning Quinn was at a couple sites. I've been working on some bank stuff, but we really thoroughly enjoy getting around to the people. Now I get as we grow, we can't be there every single day at every store, but the managers know us. We're involved in all the kind of the Zoom meetings we have with regional managers and area managers, and
Hmm.
yeah, just one that's in the business. I don't know, that's been really big to us, that we understand what they're going through, not that we're just some, you know, guy in some tower that you've never met. We're just normal guys. We don't want to be put on a pedestal by any means. We're just normal guys that had a dream that we're just pushing to make something great, is all.
That's great. That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm curious, when you go back, you think about yourself when you started, if somebody was listening to this that was like that young Connor, right? What
Hmm.
advice would you give them if they wanted to, if they were thinking about entrepreneurship?
Yeah. Not to put a shameless plug in, but I get this question a lot, and I've actually decided I'm too busy to just go to lunch with everybody that asks the question. So
Yeah.
I'm about 92% done with the book I'm writing. So it'll come out sometime, hopefully fall or winter of 2025. But it's called Dreaming to Doing, is what right now is officially what I'm going to call it. That a lot of people do have the dreams, but the doing part is where a lot of people get stuck, right? So in my
Hmm.
mind, the limits that we put on ourselves is a big thing, that people just don't think they can do it, and a lot of those are self-imposed limits.
Hmm.
So yeah, don't. Some of it's just a mindset. A lot of it is mindset to get started. You just got to get started in something. At one point, Quinn and I also ran a septic company, and a lot of people would say that's a terrible job, right? But for us, we just want to do something on our own to kind of get the ball rolling down the hill. Doesn't matter what it was. We didn't have dreams to become car wash owners. It just kind of happened. And if you talk to most business owners, that's usually their story. I didn't have the plan to do this or do that. It just kind of happened that way. So part of it
Hmm.
is you gotta turn those dreams into reality, and a lot of it's just taking action. Don't sit on the sidelines. And I know people that get paralysis by analysis. They just analyze the heck out of it. It's like, just go take action, do something.
Hmm.
You got to do so. Yeah, that's, I guess I'd say that would be one thing I tell people is go do something.
I'm curious if, um, your mom clearly was a strong presence in your life, and with Quinn, you know, we tend to take on some of the characteristics of our parents. Where does your mom show up for you in your business life?
Yeah, I would say she's a big supporter now. At first, she was maybe a little skeptical, probably like all parents. Just
Hmm.
what's this young 20-year-old kid doing? She often says, and at least in my case, um, so I would be the fifth generation of a cattle ranch that started 40 miles south of St. George, Utah. And every generation of those five generations that ran the ranch, there was others that went out and did entrepreneurial things. So I kind of come from a long line on my dad's side of entrepreneurs. So my mom often says, "Man, you have a lot more of your dad than any of your other siblings," because he was more of a entrepreneur, risk taker. I mean,
Hmm.
he got up right before he passed away to about 10,000 head of cattle. So, I mean, he was growing his cattle operation. Um, so she is definitely a big influence. But from the entrepreneur side, um, I always just like to tease her and joke with her. When I started, I said, "Hey, I just want someday to have 100 million of debt. That's all I'm after. That's what I'm shooting for." When I was young and dumb, and she would say, "Oh, I don't know how you sleep at night," because she is one of those zero debt, zero, don't do anything like that. So um, I kind of banter with her now, back and forth. Is where she's at. I banter with her as we're growing way quicker than she would ever do, but she kind of just goes with it now.
That's great.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, awesome. This was fantastic, Connor. Thank you for joining me at Untold. If somebody wanted to learn more about Tag and Go, if they're in your coverage, like where can they go to learn more about your membership model, what you guys do?
Yeah, I mean, the standard just tagandgo.com, our website, but I would
Okay.
say if anybody's on LinkedIn, Quinn and I as both of the founders are being much more active there, thanks to our marketing team saying it's a good way to kind of get our story out. I mean, depending on where you live, Southern Utah, Eastern Idaho, you probably already have seen one of our car washes. If you're in the Salt Lake, Weber, Davis County, you may or may not have, but I hope people will start seeing or hearing our story, because we hope in the next coming years you'll start seeing pockets of Tag and Go starting to pop up, and then they could say, "Oh yeah, I listened to Untold once and heard about that story," or whatever. So, but the biggest thing we want people to know is, yeah, we are definitely locally owned and operated. Mountain West is kind of our bread and butter. A lot of our competitors are more nationally. I'm not saying that's good or bad. It's just different. It's just a different model where we're kind of the biggest regional player that
Okay.
yeah, that's what we're shooting for.
All right. Taggandgo.com. Awesome. Thanks for your time today, Connor. It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.